Tonight, let us travel back, far back in time, to the winding rivers and misty mountains of ancient China. It is a land of bamboo groves, terraced fields, and jade green hills. And within one small town, hidden between the folds of the valley, there lives a humble tea seller. His name is Li Wei. Each morning, as the mist still clings to the earth, Li Wei opens the wooden shutters of his tiny shop. The air is cool and scented with damp earth and flowering plum trees. And from a clay jar, he measures out precious leaves of tea that has been picked by hand, dried in the sun, and carried carefully down the mountain paths. The sound of a kettle fills the room. Water begins to boil. And as the steam rises, so too does the beginning of our story. The shop at dawn. Li Wei's shop is small but warm. The wooden counter is worn smooth from years of use. Bundles of dried herbs hang from the rafters, mint, chrysanthemum, jasmine blossoms, each adding its own soft fragrance to the air. The townsfolk know that his shop is not simply a place to drink. It is a place to rest, a place to listen, and a place where stories are shared as gently as the tea is poured. Every day, farmers, travelers, and wandering scholars stop by. They sit on low stools, rest their tired feet, and sip from cups so small they can be cradled between two fingers. The tea is light, earthy, and smooth its warmth, spreading slowly through the body. A town of lanterns. The town itself is a quiet one. By day, the market hums softly with traders selling rice, silk, and spices. By night, lanterns are hung along the narrow streets. Their red glow flickers across the stone walls, casting gentle reflections onto the water channels that run between the houses. The people here live simple lives. Children play by the riverbank. Fishermen mend their nets in the fading light. Old women sit on benches, shelling beans and humming old songs. Life is steady, unhurried, and shaped by the rhythm of the seasons. Li Wei feels comfort in this rhythm, but he also carries a quiet dream of one day traveling beyond the valley to bring his tea to the great city by the river, where emperors' messengers and silk merchants pass by in endless streams. The ritual of tea. For now, though, his joy is here, in the gentle art of preparing tea. He begins each day by heating water in a bronze kettle. He waits patiently, watching the bubbles rise, listening to the soft hum of boiling. Then he rinses the teapot with hot water, warming the clay so that it holds the perfect heat. Next, he places the leaves inside carefully, respectfully, as though the leaves themselves carry a story. Finally, he pours the steaming water over them and waits, letting the leaves slowly unfurl. The tea darkens, turning the color of morning sunlight. And with each sip, a calmness spreads like ripples across a still pond. The traveler arrives. On this morning, as Li Wei arranges his jars, the sound of footsteps comes from outside. A traveler, cloaked in dust, enters the shop. His face is weathered, his robe faded from long journeys. He bows politely. "Tea," he says simply. His voice is tired but kind. Li Wei smiles, gestures to a stool, and begins the ritual once more. As the steam curls upward, the traveler sighs in relief. The two sit in silence for a while, listening to the kettle's soft hiss and the birds calling outside. At last, the traveler speaks. I have walked for many days, he says. I have seen mountains high as the sky and rivers as wide as seas. But here, in this small cup of tea, I have found the greatest comfort. Li Wei bows his head, grateful for the words. He knows deep down that tea is more than a drink. It is a way of sharing peace. Part 2. The Traveler's Tale. The steam drifted gently between them, rising in slow ribbons, fading into the cool morning air. Li Wei poured the traveler another cup, watching the man's hands wrap gratefully around the warm porcelain. The shop was quiet. Outside, the market had not yet begun its bustle. The faint sound of roosters crowing drifted through the window. Somewhere in the distance, a temple bell rang, its tone echoing across the valley like a long, low sigh. The stranger's eyes. Li Wei studied his guest carefully. The man's robe was worn thin from the road, its edges frayed, but his belt was tied with a silken cord, a sign that he was not merely a poor wanderer. His shoes were dusty, yet his posture was strong. And in his eyes, there was a glimmer of both weariness and wisdom, as though he had carried countless stories across endless miles. At last, Li Wei spoke. "Traveler, you must have come far. Where has your journey taken you?" The man smiled faintly. He took a slow sip before answering. "I have walked through provinces where the rivers shine like silver in the morning, and mountains rise like dragons into the clouds. I have crossed forests so dense that sunlight never touched the ground. And now I make my way to the great city by the river." A story within a cup. Li Wei leaned forward. "The great city? That is my dream, to one day bring my tea there." The traveler nodded slowly, as if weighing the words. "Perhaps it is no dream," he said softly. "For even the smallest stream may one day reach the ocean." He set down his cup, and for a moment, silence filled the room again. Then, the traveler's voice lowered, becoming almost like a secret. "Do you know tea is more than a drink?" he asked. "It carries with it the memory of mountains, the patience of the sun, and the purity of water. And to those who know how to listen, tea can even tell stories." Li Wei blinked, surprised. "Stories? From tea?" The traveler smiled. "Watch." The steam's secret. He poured himself another cup, lifting it to his lips with deliberate care. As the steam rose, he gazed into it, his eyes unfocused, as though looking through time itself. "Long ago," he whispered, "there was a farmer high in the mountains who discovered the power of these leaves. It is said he brewed them, not only to stay awake during his labor, but to quiet the storms of his mind. In his dreams, the mountain spoke to him, telling him that tea was a gift of balance, a bridge between earth and spirit." His voice fell into rhythm, like a slow lullaby. Li Wei felt the story washing over him, like warm water flowing downstream. And in that quiet shop, it seemed the walls faded away. For a moment, Li Wei imagined the misty mountain, the farmer's calloused hands, the rustle of leaves in the wind. When the traveler finished, the tea in his cup had gone cold, but the story lingered, warming the air like embers in the night. Evening descends. As the day wore on, villagers trickled into the shop. A farmer came, dust still clinging to his clothes. A scholar followed, carrying scrolls tucked under his arm. A group of children ran past, laughing, their sandals clattering on the stones. Each one paused for a moment, drawn in by the scent of tea, by the calmness of the shop. The traveler said little, but his eyes watched everything. When someone laughed, he smiled. When someone sighed, he listened. And when Li Wei poured the tea, the traveler's gaze followed each motion as though every detail mattered. A lantern by the door, night came slowly. The market closed. The sound of hammers faded. The fishermen's songs quieted. One by one, lanterns flickered to life. Their light danced along the water channels, casting reflections like golden fish swimming in the dark. Li Wei lit a single lantern in his shop and hung it by the door. Its glow was warm, soft, inviting anyone who still wandered the streets. The traveler rose to leave. But before stepping outside, he placed a hand on the counter. "Li Wei," he said quietly, "I have tasted tea across many lands. But there is something in your brew, something honest, something patient. Hold on to it. For one day, it may carry you further than you dream." With that, he bowed and disappeared into the night. Dreams of the road ahead. Li Wei closed his shop at last. The kettle was empty. The cups were stacked. The air smelled faintly of jasmine and smoke. He sat by a window, looking at the lantern's reflection in the water. The traveler's words echoed in his mind. A stream may one day reach the ocean. Perhaps, he thought, perhaps his little shop was not the end. Perhaps it was only the beginning. And with that thought, Li Wei drifted into sleep, his head resting gently on his folded arms, while the lantern outside swayed softly in the night breeze. Part 3. The road beyond the village. The night passed quietly. Outside, the stars shimmered like grains of rice scattered across black silk. The moon drifted slowly, its reflection rippling in the water channels as that wound through the village. And inside the little shop, Li Wei slept peacefully at his wooden table, the lantern glowing softly above him. His dreams were filled with mountains, rivers, and the sound of a traveler's voice speaking of distant lands. Morning resolve. When dawn arrived, the village awoke with its familiar sounds. Roosters crowed. The blacksmith's hammer struck iron. Children's laughter carried through the narrow streets. But Li Wei rose with a different feeling that morning. Something had shifted within him. The traveler's words still lingered, like a melody he could not forget. He brewed his tea, but as he poured the steaming liquid into cups, he caught himself staring at the rising mist. It no longer looked like steam to him. It looked like mountains. It looked like rows winding into the horizon. The decision. After serving a few familiar faces, the farmer with tired eyes, the scholar lost in thought, the young children who always begged for a drop of sweet tea leaf, Wei made a quiet decision. "I will leave the village," he whispered to himself. "Not forever, but long enough to see the world beyond these walls. Long enough to learn what tea means outside this place." The thought made his heart beat faster. His hands trembled slightly as he placed cups back onto their wooden shelves. Travel was not a small thing. The roads were long. Bandits sometimes roamed. And yet, he felt as though the traveler had planted a seed within him, and now it was beginning to sprout. Preparing for the journey. For several days, Li Wei prepared. He dried leaves carefully, packing them into small pouches tied with cord. He chose only the best leaf tender, fragrant, touched by the morning dew. He gathered his old teapot, a kettle, and a handful of clay cups. He wrapped them in cloth so they would not break on the road. At night, he walked through the quiet village, listening to the sound of water lapping against the canal walls. He memorized the curve of every street, the glow of lanterns, the smell of sesame oil drifting from neighbors' kitchens. For though he longed for adventure, this was still home. And leaving home, even for a little while, was never simple. The market day. On the morning of his departure, the market square was alive with sound. Merchants called out their prices. Fishermen hauled in nets glistening with silver scales. Children darted between baskets of fruit. Li Wei walked slowly through the crowd, his satchel heavy with tea. Some villagers stopped him. "Li Wei, where are you going with so much tea?" He smiled gently. "To the city," he said, "to learn what lies beyond." Some laughed softly, shaking their heads. "You, the quiet tea seller? The world is too wide for you." But others wished him well. One old woman pressed a coin into his hand. "For luck," she whispered. "May your tea bring peace to those you meet." The road opens. The road out of the village curved along the river. It was wide at first, lined with willow trees whose branches swayed in the breeze. The air smelled fresh, filled with the scent of damp earth and new grass. As Li Wei walked, the sound of the village faded behind him. The blacksmith's hammer, the chatter of neighbors, the crackle of fires, all melted into silence until there was only the steady sound of his sandals on the path. Birds sang in the reeds. A crane lifted from the water, its wings unfolding like a sail in the wind. For the first time, Li Wei felt the world stretching before him, vast, quiet, endless. Tea by the river. By midday, the sun was high, and Li Wei grew tired. He stopped by a riverbank where the water moved slow and clear. He gathered a few sticks, lit a small fire, and set his kettle upon it. The water boiled gently, and soon the air filled with the soothing fragrance of tea. As he poured himself a cup, he remembered the traveler's words. Tea carries the memory of mountains, the patience of the sun, and the purity of water. And there, on the riverbank, with the sound of flowing water and the shade of a willow tree, Li Wei felt as though the world itself was joining him in the simple ritual. The caravan. As he sipped, he heard the distant sound of hooves. A caravan appeared on the road horses laden with goods, merchants walking beside them, their voices carrying laughter and song. They paused when they saw Li Wei. One man stepped forward. "Traveler, what do you carry?" "Tea," Li Wei answered softly. "Would you like some?" The merchant smiled broadly. "Ah, tea, the road's true companion." They sat together by the riverbank. Li Wei poured cups for them, and the merchants sighed with gratitude, their shoulders relaxing after a long morning's travel. One merchant, a woman with sharp eyes, studied him carefully. "Where do you go, young seller?" she asked. "To the great city," Li Wei replied, "to share my tea and to learn." She nodded. "Then walk with us. The road is safer with company." Evening fire. That night, Li Wei sat with the caravan by their fire. The sky above stretched wide and endless, a sea of stars glowing gently. The merchants told stories of mountain passes filled with snow, of river crossings on bamboo rafts, of cities where towers rose like stone trees into the sky. Li Wei listened, eyes wide, each word painting pictures in his imagination. When his turn came, he shared only the quiet truth. I am just a tea seller. But I believe tea carries something worth sharing, a piece of peace, a reminder of the earthy itself. The merchants grew quiet. One man placed a hand on his shoulder. Then you carry something more valuable than gold or silk. And under the starlight, Li Wei felt his journey had truly begun. Part 4. Trials on the Road. The caravan moved forward, its footsteps echoing against the earth. The days stretched long, the nights quiet, and the road wound ever deeper into the unknown. Li Wei walked among the merchants, his satchel of tea swaying at his side. Though he was just one traveler among many, he felt as though the road itself had become his companion, endless, patient, and full of secrets. The mountain pass. After several days, the road began to rise. Green fields gave way to rocky slopes, where tall pines clung to the cliffs, their roots gripping the stone like ancient hands. The air grew cooler. Mist drifted between the peaks, softening the edges of a world. Birds with bright wings circled above, their calls echoing through the valley. The caravan moved slowly, horses breathing heavily, their hooves striking sparks on stone. Li Wei paused often, catching his breath. He had never seen mountains before. To him, they seemed like the backs of sleeping giants, their shapes ancient and unmoving. The storm. One afternoon, as the caravan climbed higher, the sky darkened. Clouds gathered, thick and heavy, like ink spilling across silk. The first raindrops fell quietly small, cool kisses on Li Wei's skin. But soon the rain became a torrent. Wind howled through the pass, whipping cloaks and rattling packs. The merchants shouted to one another, guiding the horses, shielding their goods beneath tarps. Li Wei struggled to keep his balance, his sandals slipping on the wet stones. But even in the storm, he held tightly to his satchel of tea, as though it were a flame that must not go out. At last, the caravan found shelter beneath an overhang of rock. They huddled together, the storm raging outside, thunder rolling like the drums of heaven. Comfort in the rain. The merchants were weary, their clothes soaked, their spirits low, but Li Wei quietly gathered sticks damp, but still willing to burn if coaxed with patience. He lit a small fire beneath the rock, shielding it with his hands until the flames caught. When the water boiled, he opened his satchel and dropped a handful of fragrant leaves into the pot. The steam rose softly, curling upward, mingling with the cool scent of rain. One by one, the merchants accepted the cups he offered. The warmth seeped into their hands, into their chests, into their tired bones. The storm outside still roared, but within the circle of firelight, peace returned. "Your tea," one merchant murmured, "is stronger than the storm." Li Wei only smiled, watching the steam fade into the shadows. Shadows in the forest. When the rain passed, the caravan continued. They descended into a dense forest where the trees grew tall and close, their branches weaving a roof of green above. The path narrowed. The air smelled of moss and wet earth. Sunlight flickered through the leaves like coins scattered on the ground. Yet as they walked, a hush fell over the group. Even the birds grew quiet. The forest seemed to be listening. Then, from the shadows, eyes gleamed. Wolves, their fur dark, their movements silent. The merchants froze. The horses stamped nervously, but the wolves only watched, their eyes sharp and unblinking. They did not attack. They merely walked alongside, as though escorting the caravan deeper into the forest. Li Wei's heart pounded. And yet, instead of fear, he felt a strange calm. He remembered what the traveler had said. Tea carries the patience of the sun, the memory of the mountains. Perhaps the wolves, too, were simply part of the road's story. At last, the wolves melted back into the trees, silent as mist. The caravan breathed again. The bandits. By dusk, they reached a clearing where the road widened. The merchants began to set camp, but before they could rest, figures emerged from the trees. Bandits. Their faces were hidden, their voices harsh. "Leave your goods," they demanded, "or face the blade." The merchants stiffened, hands on their packs. The air grew tight with fear, but Li Wei stepped forward, his hands open, his voice soft. "Friends," he said, "I have no gold, only tea." The bandits laughed. "Tea? We want silver, not leaves." Yet Li Wei quietly lit his kettle, his movements steady, unhurried. The scent of tea soon drifted into a clearing, gentle and calming. Curious? One bandit took a cup, then another. Soon they were all sitting, blades lowered, hands wrapped around warm clay cups. For a long while, no one spoke. Only the fire crackled, and the forest sang its night song. At last, the leader sighed. "It has been many months since we have tasted something so pure." He rose, placing his empty cup back in Li Wei's hands. "Keep your goods. The road is yours." And like smoke, the bandits vanished into the night. Night of stars, the merchants looked at Li Wei in wonder. "You have faced wolves, storms, and thieves," one said softly. "And yet you fight with nothing but tea." Li Wei shook his head gently. "Not fight. Tea does not fight. It reminds us to be still." That night, as they lay beneath the stars, the caravan felt a peace they had not known before. The road still stretched ahead long, winding, uncertain, but they no longer feared it. For they carried with them not just goods or coin, but the memory of a quiet tea seller who taught them that even in hardship, peace could be found in the warmth of a cup. Part 5. Arrival at the Great City. Morning light spilled gently across the road. The caravan, weary but unbroken, descended from the mountains, leaving behind forests and storms, wolves and shadows. Before them stretched a wide plain, where fields rippled like golden silk, and rivers wound across the land like silver threads in a tapestry. And in the distance, rising above the earth, like a dream stood the walls of the great city. First sight of the city. Its walls were high and strong, stone upon stone, carved with dragons and clouds. The morning sun touched the tiled roofs, making them glow like fire. Tall watchtowers rose from the walls, each crowned with banners fluttering in the wind. Even from far away, Li Wei could hear the faint hum of the city, 1,000 voices, 1,000 footsteps, 1,000 lives, all woven together into one great song. his heart stirred. He had left his village with nothing but tea. Now he stood at the edge of a world greater than anything he had imagined. The city gates. As the caravan approached, they found the road crowded with travelers, farmers with carts of grain, shepherds with bleating flocks, merchants with mules heavy with silk and salt. At the gate, soldiers stood in armor, their spears shining. They inspected each traveler, their eyes sharp but not unkind. When Li Wei's turn came, he bowed deeply, holding up his satchel. "What goods do you bring?" the guard asked. "Only tea," Li Wei replied, his voice soft but steady. The guard raised an eyebrow, but when he caught the fragrance escaping from the satchel, his stern face softened. "Go on, tea seller," he said. "Perhaps the city has been waiting for you." The market of 10,000 things. Inside, the city unfurled like a scroll painting. Streets wound between houses with red doors. Children chased each other, their laughter bright as bells. Vendors called out from stalls, selling dumplings, lanterns, jade, and spices. The air was alive with color, sound, and scent. But the greatest wonder of all was the marketplace, a vast square filled with more goods than Li Wei had ever dreamed existed. Silks dyed in every shade of the rainbow, pearls that gleamed like drops of moonlight, rare spices that made the air tremble with fragrance. And yet, amidst this abundance, Li Wei set down his small kettle and cups, humble as always. First customers in the city. At first, no one noticed him. The crowd surged past, drawn to brighter, louder stalls. But Li Wei was not troubled. He lit his kettle, boiled the water, and let the fragrance of tea drift slowly into the air. The steam curled upward, gentle as prayer, wrapping itself around passers-by. One old man paused. Then another. A tired scholar, a weary porter, all drawn to the quiet stall where a young man poured tea as though pouring peace itself. They sat, they drank, and their faces softened. Stories shared over tea. As the cups emptied, the stories began. The scholar spoke of his long journey to take the imperial examinations. The porter spoke of carrying heavy loads day after day, dreaming of rest. The old man spoke of his grandchildren, their laughter, their mischief. Li Wei listened, pouring tea, offering no advice, no judgment, only warmth, only stillness. And in that stillness, each person found their heart lightened. Word spread quickly. By the east corner of the market, there is a tea seller whose cups hold not just flavor, but calm. A noble woman's visit. One afternoon, a carriage arrived. Its curtains of embroidered silk swayed gently, and from it stepped a noblewoman clothed in robes as fine as autumn clouds. Her servants carried gifts and baskets, yet she walked with quiet dignity, her eyes calm but curious. She approached Li Wei's stall, and for a moment, the busy market seemed to hush. "Tea seller," she said softly, "I have tasted every luxury of this city, but none has eased my heart. Let me taste what you offer." Li Wei bowed and poured a cup. She lifted it slowly, inhaling the fragrance, then sipped. Her eyes closed. Her shoulders loosened. And for the first time in many months, she smiled, not the smiles of wealth or pride, but of simple peace. Evening reflections. That night, when the market emptied and lanterns glowed like stars, Li Wei sat alone. His hands rested on his kettle. His heart was full, not with gold, not with fame, but with the quiet joy of having given something the city did not even know it needed. And though the road had brought him storms, wolves, and thieves, it had also brought him here to a place where a humble tea seller could touch the lives of strangers. Part 6. The Palace Invitation. The city had embraced Li Wei. Day after day, he poured tea for strangers, and strangers left as friends. The market sang with noise and color, but at his little stall, peace flowed like water from the mountains. Word traveled from merchants to scholars to nobles. Until one evening, beneath the soft glow of lanterns, a messenger in silk robes approached. The emperor's summons. The man bowed slightly, then unrolled a scroll, its red seal glimmering by candlelight. Li Wei, humble tea seller of the East Market, he read aloud, by decree of His Majesty, the Son of Heaven, you are invited to bring your tea to the Imperial Palace. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Li Wei's heart trembled. He was but a villager, a wanderer with little more than a kettle. And yet, the emperor himself had heard of him. A sleepless night. That night, Li Wei could not sleep. The moon hung like a silver coin in the sky, but his thoughts tumbled. What if he failed? What if the emperor, used to riches beyond imagining, found his tea unworthy? He breathed deeply, remembering the words of the sage by the river. Do not worry over who drinks your tea. Simply let it be what it is, a reflection of the earth and of your heart. And with that, his mind settled, and he drifted into gentle dreams. Entering the palace. At dawn, 2 guards in golden armor arrived, escorting him through the winding streets to the great palace gates. They opened, and Li Wei stepped into a world beyond imagining. Gardens stretched in every direction, with ponds filled with lotus blossoms. Bridges arched gracefully across streams, where koi fish swam like living jewels. Servants hurried silently, robes brushing the polished stones. Everywhere he looked, the palace shimmered not with mere wealth, but with centuries of care and artistry. The Empress Dowager's Trial. Before he saw the emperor, Li Wei was brought into a grand hall where the Empress Dowager waited. She was regal, her hair adorned with jade pins, her eyes sharp as falcons. I hear you bring peace in a cup, she said. Let me see if such whispers hold true. Li Wei bowed low, lit his kettle, and prepared the tea. Every movement washing the cups, pouring the water, steeping the leaves was done with calm reverence. When the Empress Dowager sipped, her stern face softened. Her hand, once clenched on her jade scepter, rested lightly. It is as they say, she murmured. Even the storms of my heart are quiet. The emperor appears. At last, Li Wei was summoned to the inner court. The emperor sat upon a throne of carved dragonwood, draped in golden robes that shimmered like the sun. Yet his face looked weary, his eyes shadowed with sleeplessness. Tea seller, the emperor said, his voice deep, but tinged with fatigue. Pour me what has brought peace to others. Li Wei bowed, then brewed. The fragrance drifted through the hearthy, warm, with the notes of spring rain and mountain wind. The emperor lifted the cup, drank, and closed his eyes. For a long moment, the hall was utterly still. Then he opened them again, and the heaviness was gone. In its place was clarity, light, and quiet strength. The gift of stillness. The emperor smiled faintly. In these walls, he said, I am surrounded by riches, flattery, and endless noise. But you, with nothing but water and leaves, have given me something rarer, stillness. He rose from his throne, and for the first time in memory, the Son of Heaven bowed his head slightly to a humble tea seller. The emperor's reward. Li Wei, he declared, from this day forth, you shall be honored as the keeper of tea. Your stall shall never be taxed, your path never hindered. But more than that, you may walk freely within these walls to serve peace wherever it is most needed. Gasps echoed through the court. Li Wei bowed deeply, tears stinging his eyes. For he did not seek wealth nor titles, yet found himself entrusted with a gift far greater, the chance to share his tea with all who thirsted for calm. Evening in the palace. That night, as he gazed out from the palace gardens, the stars above seemed brighter, the air sweeter. And Li Wei knew his journey had not ended. It had only just begun. Part 7, The Tea of Peace. The palace had embraced Li Wei, but Li Wei's heart remained unchanged. He was still the humble boy from the mountain village, still the traveler who walked dusty roads, still the man who found wonder in the simple swirl of leaves in hot water. And now, his tea was no longer just a drink. It was becoming a bridge between hearts, between worlds. The general's restless soul. One afternoon, Li Wei was called to a courtyard where a great general sat in silence. The man was mighty, his armor polished, his sword heavy with battles past. But his eyes, they were storm clouds. I have fought for decades, the general said, yet even in peace, my heart knows only war. I see battlefields when I close my eyes. I hear cries when all else is quiet. Li Wei bowed, lit his kettle, and brewed a tea of smoky leaves from the high cliffs. The general drank, and the steam curled like mist on mountains. Slowly, the iron hardness in his face softened. He set his sword aside for the first time in years and whispered, "It tastes like home, like before I ever carried steel." And in that moment, the warrior's storms grew quiet. The scholar's burden. Not long after, Li Wei was summoned to the Hall of Learning. There, a scholar bent over scrolls, his hair disheveled, his fingers stained with ink. "I chase truth," the scholar sighed. "Yet the more I learn, the less I understand. My mind is crowded with questions, my heart restless with doubt." Li Wei prepared a tea of light green leaves, delicate and grassy, like springtime reborn. The scholar sipped, and his brow unfurrowed. "The world," he whispered, "is vast enough for both questions and silence." He laughed softly, and for the first time in months, set aside his scrolls, simply breathing. The maid's secret tears. One evening, while the palace glittered with banquets, Li Wei wandered into a quiet corridor. There he found a young maid, sitting alone, her face hidden in her sleeves. "What troubles you?" Li Wei asked gently. She hesitated, then whispered, "I serve in a hall of gold, yet my family hungers beyond these walls. I cannot help them, and my heart aches each night. Li Wei brewed her tea of wildflowers, fragrant with meadow winds. As she drank, her tears slowed, her breathing deepened. Even if you cannot carry rice to them, Li Wei said softly, you can carry love in your prayers, and that love is a thread that no distance can sever. The maid smiled weakly, the heaviness lifting from her chest. The market returns. Though Li Wei now lived within the palace, he never forgot the market. Every 7th day, he returned to his little stall, pouring tea for merchants, travelers, and weary villagers. The people marveled. Keeper of tea in the palace, yet still you pour for us. Li Wei only smiled. Whether for an emperor or a farmer, the water boils the same. The leaves open the same. And peace tastes the same. And so, his stall remained a sanctuary, as beloved as ever. Tea between rivals. One spring, 2 rival ministers, their anger sharp as blades, were summoned before the emperor. Each accused the other of treachery, of corruption, of lies. The court grew heavy with tension, but the emperor raised his hand. Let Li Wei pour, he said. So Li Wei stepped forward, brewing 2 cups, the same leaves, the same water. He offered 1 cup to each man. At first, they drank stiffly, glaring at one another, but slowly, their shoulders eased, their voices lowered. And in the quiet between sips, they remembered not their rivalry, but the simple truth that both were human, both weary, both seeking dignity. That day, peace was not declared by decree, but by silence shared over tea. Li Wei's reflection. As night fell, Li Wei often sat alone in the palace garden, watching the lanterns glow like fireflies. He wondered at the path that had brought him here. He had once believed his journey was about finding purpose. But now he saw purpose was not a destination. It was in each cup, each conversation, each moment when a troubled heart was soothed by warmth. And so, the humble tea seller became more than a man. He became a gentle thread woven into the lives of all he touched. Part 8. The storm over the empire. The palace had grown to love Li Wei. Yet beyond its walls, the empire stirred with unrest. Whispers carried through the markets. Whispers of drought, of hunger, of bandits rising in the hills. Even the most powerful throne cannot silence the growl of empty stomachs. The drought. That summer, rain clouds vanished from the skies. The great rivers thinned. Fields cracked beneath the sun. Farmers wept over shriveled crops. Merchants grumbled in the bazaars. Grain was too scarce, too costly. And in the villages, children went to bed with hollow eyes. The emperor's court grew anxious. Advisors argued. Generals demanded harsher laws. Ministers spoke of punishment, of order. But none spoke of kindness. Until Li Wei stepped forward. Tea in times of hunger. My emperor, Li Wei said softly. Tea cannot fill the belly, but it can fill the spirit. When hope fades, the body weakens faster. Let me bring peace to your people, 1 cup at a time. The court murmured a tea seller, speaking in a hall of jade. But the emperor raised his hand. Let him try. And so, Li Wei returned to the markets, traveling village to village, carrying kettles and leaves. At each stop, he brewed tea for the weary. The water was simple, the leaves humble. But the warmth in his words, the quiet patience of his presence, gave the hungry something even rarer than rice. It gave them hope, the bandits, yet not all were comforted. In the dry hills, bands of desperate men gathered. Once farmers, now thieves. They raided caravans, plundered storehouses, and whispered rebellion. One night, Li Wei's caravan was stopped by such men. They demanded his goods, his tea, his life. But Li Wei did not tremble. He brewed a fire under the stars and poured tea for the bandits. Suspicious, they watched the steam curl. Then, one by one, they drank. The tea was bitter, yet in its bitterness, they tasted their own suffering. One man set down his cup, his voice aching. This is what we have become." Li Wei nodded. "Even the most bitter leaf can release sweetness if given patience. So too can you." Some bandits turned away that night, choosing to return to their villages. Not all, but enough for the tale to spread. A palace divided. Meanwhile, in the court, tensions rose like a storm. Ministers accused each other of greed. Generals demanded harsher rule. Whispers of betrayal crept through gilded halls. At last, two factions clashed openly before the throne. The emperor, weary and uncertain, called once more for Li Wei. "Pour," he said, "and remind us what we have forgotten." The tea of unity. Li Wei stepped forward, carrying a pot filled with many kinds of leaves, green, black, oolong, white, all blended together. "Alone, each leaf is strong, yet incomplete," he said. "Together, they create balance." He poured cups for the quarreling ministers. At first, they resisted, but the aroma pulled them in, smoky yet sweet, delicate yet bold. And as they drank, they saw themselves in the tea, different yet part of the same pot. That day, the shouting quieted, not forever, but long enough to let reason return. The Lantern Festival. As autumn came, the rains returned. The rivers swelled. Fields grew green again. To celebrate, the emperor declared a great lantern festival. The city glowed with 1,000 lights. Children laughed. Merchants sang. And in the heart of it all, Li Wei poured tea for strangers and friends alike. The general who once knew only war sat beside the scholar who chased endless questions. The maid who once wept alone sat beside ministers who once quarreled bitterly. All shared the same steam, the same silence, the same warmth. And in that glow, Li Wei knew his journey had found meaning. Not in riches, not in fame, but in the simple truth that a humble cup of tea could soothe the storms of an empire. Part 9. The Legacy of Li Wei. The lanterns had long faded. The empire had weathered its storm. And Li Wei, the humble tea seller, continued his quiet work. But time, like flowing water, does not pause. The autumn of life, years passed. Li Wei's hair, once dark as midnight, turned silver like frosts on bamboo. His hands, once strong, now trembled as he lifted the kettle. And yet, when he poured, the steam still rose steady, as though the tea itself remembered. He no longer traveled far. Instead, he kept a small shop near the Rivera place where villagers, travelers, and nobles alike would sit for a cup and a story. The emperor, now older too, sometimes came in disguise to share a moment of peace. The storyteller's tea. By then, people came not only for tea, but for tales. Li Wei would pour a cup, set it before a guest, and begin to speak. Of a boy who once dreamed by the river. Of his journey through villages, across mountains, into palaces. He told of bandits turned back to kindness, of ministers soothed by blended leaves, of a kingdom held together by something as small as steam. And as he spoke, the listeners drank and felt as though they were part of the story, because they were. Every person who had ever sipped from his cup had written a line in that tale. The last kettle. One winter's night, as snow drifted softly across tiled roofs, Li Wei felt his time drawing near. He brewed one final pot of tea, a blend of all the leaves he loved. Green for beginnings, oolong for journeys, black for struggle, white for peace. He poured a cup and held it in both hands. The steam rose, curling into shapes of memory. He saw the boy he once was, running barefoot by the river. He saw the friends he met, the bandits he saved, the court he calmed. He saw the emperor, younger and laughing. And then he saw the future villagers still brewing tea, children still sharing warmth, travelers still carrying leaves across mountains. His life would end, but the tea would live on. Smiling softly, he set down the cup. And in the stillness of his shop, Li Wei closed his eyes. The legacy. When morning came, the villagers found him peaceful, as though asleep. The emperor himself declared that Li Wei's shop should never close. Instead, it became a house of tea and stories. Travelers came from distant lands to sit at the wooden tables, to drink from his old kettles, to hear his tale retold. And so, the story of the tea seller spread across rivers, over mountains, through centuries. Even today, in villages and cities across the world, when a cup of tea is poured, steam rises like a memory. And though Li Wei is gone, his spirit lingers in every sip, reminding us that peace can be found in the simplest of things. Closing whisper. So, dear listener, as you drift to sleep tonight, imagine yourself in Li Wei's little shop. The kettle hums, the steam curls, the cup warms your hands. And with each sip, your worries fade, your heart softens, your eyes grow heavy. Because tea is more than drink. It is comfort, it is story, it is rest. Good night.